and welcome to This Week in Metropolis. The transmission will begin shortly.
King P here,
And Stelio7.
and welcome to another episode of This Week in Metropolis. We're back to usual format this week after sort of dabbling in our top five last week, which will be a reoccurring slot because we had loads of fun doing that.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, it was nice to get a different segment on the show, which like you say, we will come back to. But this week, we are looking at some more recent stories that have cropped up and caught our attention. You're going to kick us off this week, Matt.
Yeah, the first one I wanted to discuss, which is a very topical thing, which interested to hear your thoughts on as well. And there's a Japanese company, and they're called Donut Robotics. And what they
Already
made,
love them. Love them.
brilliant name, exactly, brilliant name. And their business was making robots for sort of customer service applications. So you went into a bank or sort of places like that, and you'd be greeted by a robot, and it would talk to you. And that was sort of what they did up until this point. But what they've just announced is a face mask. So with COVID-19, everything that's going on, face masks become a lot more prominent in society, and particularly it's something that I think a lot of Asian countries embraced for many, many years, but into Western countries like ours, it's quite a new thing. But it's become more adopted. But this face mask is no ordinary mask. It links to your phone. So what you can do is you talk. Let's say you were Spanish and I was talking to you, and there was a bit of a hola, and there's a bit of a language barrier. By speaking, it will translate. It will send your phone text of what has just been said. So I could say, James, can I have a drink, or whatever it may be, and it can translate into 9 different languages, which are Japanese, English, Chinese, French, Korean, Thai, Bahasa. Don't know where that's from. Don't know if you do. Spanish and Vietnamese. So perfect. You know, you're there. You're feeling a bit of safety from having the mask. You can speak to people in different languages. Fantastic. You can also make calls, make minute notes, sort of voice recordings, and also because you're wearing a mask, it also amplifies your voice, so people can hear you a lot better in it as well.
Yeah. In my head, I have a visual of Bane.
Exactly.
Now talking in different voices, but with his kind of, bonjour, Mr. Wayne, Monsieur Wayne. Just throwing in a different language there. I mean, it's very clever, isn't it? But I mean, it's I guess from a kind of worldwide communication, you think like different leaders around the world. I mean, it must be bad for translators because they're going to be up a creek, really, aren't they? If it becomes a more broadly available thing.
Well, I think at the moment it just does it to text, but yeah, there's no reason, I guess, why you couldn't then do it to sort of a full translation service. The thing that really impressed me about this is they've used technology clearly that they already had to develop this. But because it's such a new thing, normally when brand new things like this come out, you think, wow, that's going to cost me a fortune. You know, it's something for an early adopter, and they might buy it because it's cool, like the Google Glass, those glasses that came out, things like that, load of money to buy. This is only $40 when it comes out. So it's accessible immediately for the majority of people. So it's not, it feels a bit like science fiction, but actually it's just a real product that will be coming out relatively soon. I think it says shipping in September in Japan.
Right. Who are they kind of marketing this towards, though?
Well, I think everyone, as far as I'm aware. It's just a consumer item that anyone can buy and have, which I think is fantastic. Like I said, it's not I think $40 certainly is more than, if you're someone who's buying a mask and you're paying, sort of less than a tenner for it or whatever, fair enough. You might not want that sort of thing, but if you're someone who's traveling a lot and
Yeah, that's what I was
wants a
going to say.
mask, amazing, yeah.
That's handy if you are someone who's going to be
Yeah.
travelling to them sort of countries, and then it helps you get around in that. Yeah, definitely.
That's it. It's fantastic. They are planning to bring it into China and the US and Europe as well. So it could be the case that we could get our hands on one of those at some point.
We'll just have them as part of our office attire.
Exactly. Yeah. When we want to speak in Spanish one day,
That's
we can do it.
Yeah. Well, seeing as we have a French speaking colleague,
There we go.
we'll know when she's
Insulting us in
insulting
French.
us. Yeah, exactly.
Exactly.
Shout out to Corrine there, by the way.
What are your thoughts mask-wise? Because today, I went to the supermarket today, first time wearing a mask.
You wore one?
Wore one, walking around the supermarket, wearing it.
Well, well done. First of all,
I wasn't after praise.
I'm not against wearing one. I think, if it's for the benefit of everyone else, and if everyone does it, then yeah, fair enough. I think in the right scenarios, if you've gone to a supermarket, I mean, I went to a supermarket yesterday. I must say I didn't wear one, but I don't know. I think at the moment it's a kind of personal choice in them situations where you're not legally advised that you have to wear one. I think public transport, they're saying you have to. But yeah, I mean, I'm not against it, but I'm a guy with a full beard, so they'll need to get some sort of hairnet for me.
You can just comb it over your mouth, and then you'll be fine.
Well, exactly. That's another option. Yeah.
I think
maybe I've got one.
I got one, or got a few because it was a 3-pack. More than anything, I think for me, you read the science and whatever behind it, and I find that very, very interesting. But I looked at it almost like a social experiment. I was thinking, well, people are wearing it, people are making that choice to wear it. I haven't up until this point, and we're sort of 3-4 months into all of this. What will it be like, and will I get benefit from it? And I think having the first time doing it, yeah, I mean it's weird because it does. I think fair enough, you've got the protection of having something over your mouth, but I think almost it gives you a psychological protection as well in how I experienced it.
Yeah.
But to the point where I thought I did have to be mindful of getting too close to people. Like there's almost that false sense of security. You think, well, I've got a mask on, I'm okay, but you still have to think, well, I still should be distancing as well.
But the masks are actually to protect others, aren't they? So you're protecting other people if you're wearing a mask. I'm pretty sure if other people aren't wearing them, then you're still technically at risk. I do get what you mean, though. When I was in the supermarket yesterday, there was a couple of people who came right up next to me and almost reached across in front of me.
Yeah.
And I was just like, people just forgot what's going on, which is so weird to feel like that now, considering we've lived, however many years not doing that. And if someone reaches across, you don't even think twice about it.
Exactly.
But now I'm kind of like, I almost feel like having it out with them.
Yeah, exactly.
But it's
funny,
peculiar.
isn't it?
It's peculiar. Yeah.
Well, I guess it's just everyone get used to the scenario. One thing I did notice actually, and it was weird. I think again, sort of my personal thing, walking around the supermarket. So previously, I did find that I almost felt like I was holding my breath in certain places. I think, there's lots of people. It's almost like like holding my breath completely. Sort of subconsciously doing it, and again wearing a mask, I wasn't doing that, so that's positive. Breathing is always a good choice.
The masks that you got, are they just plain ones?
Fabric. Well, see, me being I went for something a little fancy, which that I got from Reebok. So they're black and they're fitted, and I look a bit like a ninja, which I think is cool. I like walking around looking like I'm from some anime cyberpunk novel. So I embrace that too.
Yeah. I think what you could go a bit further and start putting some of your artwork
Could they?
printed and sewn on or something like that.
Well, no, it's
Get
complete
the brand
possible.
out there.
Yeah, I did look at those at first. When those sort of things started coming out, I did sort of cringe a bit when I saw them, because it seemed like very shortly after lockdown, all of a sudden I put some of my stuff on a site called Redbubble, which prints stuff to order. So I can put stuff on a t-shirt or a hoodie and all that sort of thing. And so get stuff printed, and people can buy my stuff and do buy my stuff printed. And they did add face masks quite soon, which fair enough. It's not business opportunity, isn't it? That people will be interested in. But I think at the time I wasn't sort of psychologically ready for it. It was a bit like, hang on, this is a bit weird. Why would I felt like I was, profiteering out of
from
a
a
global
problem.
pandemic.
Yeah.
But now I
However,
think
we have just had 1 million items shipped.
Yeah, that's it. It's sort of like, does it really sit right? But now I think, and when I was looking, because I decided, right, I'm gonna get some masks. I want to have a look. I didn't want the paper ones, like some medical looking ones. Didn't really feel right wearing those, for comfort and so on, and fit. So I was having a look at different ones. There was loads of different icons, and so many companies now sell them. Like big major brands now. I bought mine from Reebok, and so I know Adidas make them, and some of the sportswear companies make them. But all different brands of all different types, sort of mainly clothing sort of retailers do them, and you can tell they're aiming them at different markets, different designs, like you said, different fabrics. It seems like it's the equivalent of baseball cap. Like it will now be sort of, oh yeah, I'm gonna get a nice mask to go with this dress as such. But yeah, it's interesting.
Where there's an opportunity, Matt. Where there's an opportunity.
Exactly, that's it. Not quite on the same theme, but on sort of linking to what we discussed previously about we were talking about the Austrian guy that jumped out of out of a plane or something.
Red Bull thing.
Red Bull thing where he jumped out on the edge of the earth as such. There's a company now that will allow you to not to jump out, but allow you to experience a similar sight to what he did. It's a company called Space Perspective, and what they're allowing you to do is you can basically, which this part sounds dodgy to me. I think if you're going in space, you think I'm going to go up there in a rocket, or like I'm going up there in something like that resembles an aircraft or something. Something that's going to look after you when you're up there. But they're doing it with a balloon. And the balloon part, I just think, hang on, I'm not sure about this. But yeah, it's apparently similar to a weather balloon. And in this article, it says that, and I've seen some of the videos on YouTube where a school or like a hobbyist will get a GoPro, attach it to a balloon and send it up in space, and you see all these really cool imagery. I think they're quite tough sort of balloons. But you're in a pressurized capsule with eight passengers in total, and they're going to launch from Kennedy Space Center in Florida, and you'll slowly float upwards until you reach the edge of space at 100,000 feet above ground level, and then float there for 2 hours where you can admire the views. And yeah, there's a bar as well. Yeah, so you can
probably be at the bar after 10 minutes, to be fair.
Right, you've seen it all by then.
Well, I mean, don't get me wrong, space is pretty big. I'm pretty sure it's endless, but well, we don't know that. But anyway, but if you're up there, you see that kind of, once you get to that crest where you can just see the Earth and in all its glory, and then you look around, there's space. What is there left to see? I mean, I'd love to see it. Don't get me wrong, I'd love to see it from that, just that once in a moment lifetime. But it's a bit like, I don't know, being at the top of a mountain and looking out at the views and going, wow, this is amazing. I wouldn't sit there for 2 hours and look at it.
Well, but that's what I was going to say, is if you think in 2 hours, it's not necessarily going to be the same view, is it? I know, like, the Earth's not going to rotate a great amount, but surely something will change during that period of time.
Oh yeah, I'm sure when you're up there might be a bit of a difference, but I think maybe I'm just too impatient. I want to see it, and then I go,
Then get
right,
back home again.
done. What else can we see up here? Where's
Yeah.
start showing me some planets?
I guess, I think you might have to go a bit further though.
Yeah.
For a planet, wouldn't you?
Yeah. Oh, I guess it would still be interesting to see the rest of what you can see up there.
And it doesn't say. Let's see. Well, here's a good fact for you. Again, it says the entire experience will span 6 hours. So that's put you off already, hasn't
journey
it?
down and 2 in between.
Less than 20 people have ever been to the edge of space under a space balloon. Well, see, that sounds less exciting. Yeah, probably under a balloon. No one's going to do it, are they?
Space balloon.
Far fewer have been in an orbit around our planet, says the company. But but it doesn't say anything about prices.
Not the same price as that face mask, I assume.
Well, no, probably not. But it does have a refreshments bar and a toilet.
Oh, well, at least,
which is useful, isn't it?
I won't have to hold it for too long. I mean, it'd be interesting to know how much. There's a lot more places on Earth that I'd need to see before I think I'll contemplate having the need to go into space, though. I know you're probably the opposite because that all fascinates you, and you'd be up there like a rocket, to excuse the pun. But
I'd rather be up there in a rocket, to be honest. Like that's it. Just that whole thought of you see throughout history, like the things with the airships, and you just imagine going up there, like the first lot going up there, and everyone's waving, and then as a bird flies through in a balloon, and then what's going to happen? Yeah, and that's it.
I mean, this actually leads on really nicely onto my first point, which is, and I'll start this with a question to you, Matt.
Yeah.
Do you believe in aliens?
Yes.
You do?
Well, yeah, because it's for me an alien. Like I'm a big Star Wars fan, as I've said before. Yeah. So an alien is basically like a creature from another planet, and as we've sort of already proved that there are hundreds of other, if not thousands of other planets out there, and there are some that are very similar sort of climate and sort of environment to ours. There probably will be equivalent to us somewhere.
Some form of life.
Some form of life, exactly, but it's just so far away.
So
we've not found them.
So with that, like things like UFO spottings and things like that, do you think they're real? A lot of the ones that you've ever seen on the news?
No, that's the contradiction with that. I believe that they're aliens, but I think a lot of these things, I don't believe in the man who thinks, I've just been taken somewhere and they've taken me kidneys out and like that sort of thing. that for me is too much. I think it can be explained by aircraft, like testing and stuff like that, because you often find that, and correct me if I'm wrong with this, the people that will say, oh yeah, they took me and blah, 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 is often in places that are very near to Air Force bases and that sort of stuff. And
Well, I mean, this all stems from there's a show on Netflix called Unsolved Mysteries. The key word there for me is unsolved.
Because it's a lie.
Yeah. Which I was recommended by friend of the show. He's been on before, Mark. Maybe we'll call this something. I don't know. Question mark.
Oh, mate, that question mark is lovely.
Question mark.
Yeah.
And he said to me and a few of our other friends to watch this show. He said, you need to see what it's all about. And there's I think there's 5 or 6 different episodes in the docuseries, and they all specify on different subjects. And there's this one about this UFO spotting in 1969 in Massachusetts, right?
Right.
And you have I think there's 3 or 4, maybe 5 people that all claim that on the 1st of September 1969 that they saw a UFO. Well, when they
Okay.
say they saw a UFO, it was this strong beam of light, and they were all within kind of a stone's throw of Massachusetts, all in
Hmm.
different little areas. And all of them on this one particular night claim that they saw the same thing. Some of them say they had a blackout and can only remember parts of it, but it lasted like 3 hours. One of them reckons that a beam of light shot upon him, and next thing you know, he was on this spacecraft, whatever it was, right?
Yeah.
And also saw a woman, or at the time, because he was younger, a girl. And this same girl is saying that she remembers all of this, but doesn't remember seeing him, but he remembers seeing her. So you've got these 4 or 5 different people that are accounting for a very similar thing, all on the same night. None of them reported it.
Yeah.
Some of them apparently phoned into a local radio station to talk about it, but the tapes have since been overwritten,
Mm.
which I think is a bit strange. Surely that would be something you get. None of them actually explained on the documentary what happened to them, either because they can't remember or
So how's that work then? Oh, something happened, but
yeah,
I don't know. I don't really know what it was.
yeah. For me, and I raised this, there was a lot of red flags.
Yeah.
I mean, they claim that they don't know each other. None of these people. Although one of the women, the woman who said that she was on the spacecraft, and the guy said he saw her on there with him.
Yeah.
She said, "Oh, we never really knew each other, or we never hung about in the same crowds, or like something like that," which was a little bit dubious.
Yeah.
But there was a lot of things on there. I mean, I'm personally not a believer in that sort of thing. Potentially that there's other life forms, yes, I think that's not too far fetched. But the
Mm.
whole UFO thing and spotting for me is a bit out there. Um, One of the things that Mark said, I'm just trying to find what it was that his fault on it all was that um, it's either that they're all lying, which he
Mm.
thinks is a bit dubious and a bit doubtful. It was a mass delusion, a government experiment, or aliens. And he said, I can't think of anything else. But just on the principle of what I've just told you, the other thing that I'll add to it is there was a few of the characters that were a little bit out there,
Right.
and
Yeah.
that for me is another little sign that these could be a bit crackers.
Well, it ties into a couple of things actually. There's on Disney Plus. There's a program which I think is called Brain Games. I'm sure it's called Brain Games, and it's all about sort of how your mind works and how vision works and that sort of thing, and how sort of magicians use sleight of hand and all of that sort of stuff. Really interesting series. But one of the things it covers on there, which is unrelated to this, but it could explain what happened, is they get a group of people and they recreate a mugging. So they recreate this guy, he's having an argument with a woman, and then some guys come and nick his camera, I think, something like that, and run off. Um, and they take it from that point to then having a detective interviewing the people, and then sort of put a jury together, and they sort of talk about what they saw and all this sort of stuff. And it shows you that how people can be led in what they've seen. Like it will be someone will say, "Oh yeah, they were definitely wearing a white coat," and then based on that one thing, that three others will say, "Oh yeah, I agree, it was a white coat," even though when they were interviewed straight after, they said, "Oh, it was a green coat." And then things like that, it's quite easy for the mind to get distracted more than anything else. It won't take in all the information, and then it just fills the gaps with
Yeah.
what it feels like it needs to take. So if you've got, imagine if me and you are out and we look at something in the sky and think, oh, what's that? No,
Mm.
whatever it is, don't think about it, and then we see on the news that some guy's saying, I saw an alien. No, I saw a
And then all of a
spaceship, and it
sudden
was
you
in the sky.
think
And me and you are thinking, well, we've
maybe
seen
that's
a
what we
spaceship.
saw.
And
Yeah.
then he's saying, oh, it had lights, and we're thinking, oh yeah, actually, I remember that.
Mm.
It can go that way,
Isn't that
can't it?
something like suggestibility or something like that? I'm pretty
Yeah,
sure it's
maybe.
this. And again, linked to the conversation we had last night in our chat about this TV show, was like people who think things like Darren Brown, for example.
Yeah.
There's some people that believe that the people that he has on his gigs and TV shows are actors, and they can't
Right.
believe that he can read minds and manipulate people in that way. But again, there is that other thing of suggestibility, that you could throw out a name or throw out a color or something like that someone has a connection with and can go, oh yeah, he must be talking about me.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And it's
Yeah.
it's not that he knows, it's just, you know, you either go obscure, you go simple, and the kind of the simpler stuff is what
Exactly
people will connect with, I think.
Yeah.
But this show, I mean, yeah, let's just say, you know, it didn't end with an agreement, in that I believe that it was, and you know, I feel there is, you know, because the question came back at me, which was, what is there to gain? And I was like, well, one of my friends said attention, another one,
Yeah.
and I said, you know, they're going to get paid to do this. You know what I mean? If they've got people like me watching it and other people watching it, then, you know, they're going to get some sort of royalties for doing this TV show.
I agree with it. I think you've got that situation. I'm sure there probably are some who get a bit of fame out of it, I suppose, don't they? And they probably get a buzz out of having that recognition or whatever. But it reminded me, you saying this, that I think it was recently, and I need to look into this, that a group of UFO enthusiasts or whatever had got together and campaigned to have, I think there was a particular piece of footage released, or got the US government's comment on it, and they confirmed that it was a UFO and they didn't know what it was. And like the government actually confirmed, we don't know what this thing is. And I think it was a stereotypical, like you see in the TV, and there was, you know, a fighter plane flying along and they saw something in the camera and it got recorded and that. And I think one of the people that was involved in this was one of the guys from Blink 182.
Right.
I think he's really into it. I don't know which one, but I'm sure he was involved with it as well.
Well, maybe that, because they did show something about that at the end of this episode, where there was it whatever this thing was, it flew, and again, it's kind of grainy footage, but
Yeah.
you saw something and it flew apparently between these two fighter jets, so
Yeah.
that might be linked to it. But yeah, I mean, yeah,
Tom DeLonge.
Tom DeLonge, yeah. Wasn't he that he used to be the lead singer? I think he's the one who isn't there anymore.
Yes, I
Who
recognise
is
him.
in the band Aliens and Airwaves? Angels and Airwaves.
And he's a UFO researcher now.
There you go. What a change in career.
Exactly. Who knows?
But yeah, it was a bit bizarre, but
the thing is, with this sort of stuff, I want to believe it as well. It's not like being a sci-fi fan and being, you know, adamant that, yeah, there has got to be other things out there. If we exist, there's got to be an equivalent somewhere. You know, we can't be unique. We can't be in a galaxy full of planets and solar systems and think, well, we're special and, you know, it's only us. That if there are other life forms, they might not look how we look. You know, it could be that they're like insects. You don't know, but depending on the environment.
You just want some sort of hard evidence, though, don't you? That's
Exactly.
the thing. Rather than just taking someone's word for it. Whether, don't get me wrong, the scenario, and I think this is where Mark was coming from, the fact that all 6, 5, whatever, how many people it was, said that they saw the same thing on the same night.
Yeah.
Yes, it is interesting and intriguing that they all, and if they were telling the truth, then wow.
Yeah.
But I think there still wasn't enough for me.
No.
From the information, and you check it out. You should check it out just to get your personal thoughts.
What's that on?
That's on Netflix. That is.
Netflix.
It's
I'll have a look.
called Unsolved Mysteries. But while we're on that, we actually had a question come in last week from a friend of mine, Steve, who asked, because of lockdown, a lot of TV shows and movies and things like that have been postponed, either due to they can't record it, or obviously people can't go to see movies. Well, I think we touched upon that as well a couple of weeks ago. And his question was, what show would you miss if postponed for 12 months, for the next 12 months? Is there a TV show that that if it got postponed now for the next 12 months, what would you miss the most?
I've been thinking about this, and I think it's probably quite. It's not a boring one. Boring one is playing it down, I think, a bit. But there's a series that I do love and I have watched for many, many years called NCIS, which is Naval Criminal Investigation Service. And there's the main one, which has been going for 17 seasons now. And sort of I've been watching it since the beginning. So it's quite an investment. There's now an LA one, there's now a New Orleans one as well. And there's the 2 spin-offs, which I watch as well. And it's just standard, easy watching, like... I don't know, criminal sort of drama. Something happens, the team go and investigate, you know all the characters, they then, look into the crime and solve it at the end. And there's often sort of arcs of stories running through it based on the main characters. The 3 series all had to finish early. So normally, as most series do, end on a bit of a cliffhanger. They had to finish on episode 22 instead of 24 because of lockdown and that. So they didn't even finish the current seasons, which was fine. It didn't affect them. But I think usually they run from, I think it's September to, I don't know, sort of spring or something like that. But with everything that's going, I'm sure it will be the case that that's delayed. And I think it would be a shame. You just get into a habit. I mean, that's like one of my... how to describe it? It's just one of my standard programs that I always watch.
A regular watch, like someone would a soap, I suppose.
Exactly that. Yeah. That's not my sort of version of that, and I think it would be a shame because I really enjoy them. I've invested so much time in the characters and stuff like that for them to. It's fine if they're delayed, but missing a year of those would be a bit disappointing. What about you?
Well, mine, I probably don't watch things. TV shows as regularly, like in that sort of format. Not so much anymore. I used to with soaps, things like I used to watch EastEnders a lot of the time, which is a cardinal sin. But I'd say now it's probably more sport related. So football for me, not having that for 3 months or however long it went, which I'm used to on a yearly basis because you obviously have an end of season and then you have pre-season, so they have the break anyway. But this is weird to do it kind of towards the back end of the season. So since that's been back, and it hasn't quite been the same without the fans there in the stadiums, but it's kind of been now that we've had loads of games playing pretty much every day. It's been nice to binge watch lots of football again. But the other one for me is, I'm a big wrestling fan, so like WWE. I'm surprised that they've managed to carry on as long as they have. They've changed things up. I mean, this is going back from like March, April time now, where the biggest event of the year had to be held at their performance center, which with no audience, which is just mad. And that for me is even more because I always look at wrestling as a sport drama. It's there's a story being told as well as 2 guys fighting in a ring or women. And to not have a crowd participate in that does make it feel weird. But what they've changed up recently in WWE and some of the other brands is they've actually had some of the kind of up and coming talents that are training to be ringside. So you might have like 20 to 30 people as your audience making noise to create a bit of an atmosphere. But they've had to put up like big perspex plexiglass, they call it, around the where the fans usually are, just so they can bang on there. Not into it's so weird, but I mean, it's carried on. It's managed to see through and carry on putting on a product, although it hasn't been as at its best, I would say. But that they would be the 2 for me. If they had to be stopped for 12 months, I'd be a bit lost then. I'd have to binge watch a hell of a lot more things. But they'd be the ones for me.
No, I was just going to say an interesting thing about WWE that I read recently was that they, even though you'd think with a lot of these industries that they were doing, it was doing damage financially to a lot of these organisations, whereas WWE as a business, their year-on-year revenue had improved by 60%. So it was a record 291 million this year compared to 182 million a year ago. But the reason for that is to do with it furloughing staff.
Yeah,
So I don't
well,
think
they
it
did.
was actually that it was that they were more successful as a business, like Amazon is, in that, you know, loads of people using Amazon and their business
Yeah.
model caters for it. It was more that it saved money rather than sort of anything else.
Well, they had I can't remember if it was March. Oh, no, it must have been a bit later than that. There was a day that's being referred to, I think, as Black Wednesday, and
Right.
they literally released nearly 30 members of staff. It must have been, including active wrestlers, some of them relatively big names as well, and everyone was just shocked that they've just managed to let all these people go. But again, it's kind of, you know, if you're not kind of key to the product at that time and they can't make any use of you, then you're just costing the money.
Sad reality, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, there's a fine chance that a lot of them will come back round and end up back there again one day, but once things pick up again. But it's going to be interesting to see with that whole environment, and same with football and other sports, when crowds will be allowed, because at the moment I can't see
No,
any way that you're going to be able to make that possible. But
no.
But again, thanks for that question, Steve. Appreciate you getting involved.
Yeah, definitely. It was really interesting. The final thing, really, for me to add this week is I've been making a concerted effort to dig out old films that I haven't watched for a long while. Yesterday, finished watching Back to the Future, the original one.
Amazing.
Film I loved, absolutely loved growing up. And one of those ones that I probably, I don't know, I haven't sat down and watched for a good 10 years or something like that. You just sort of forget about them. And literally was gripped start to finish. Love it. There's nothing bad about that film at all. Amazing. But and The Weekend, which is nowhere near to the same level as the film, I watched was Tron, which is really, I think Tron for me is more it's a product of its time. It's a bit of a it's a bit of a cult favorite because of the technology they used in terms of the computer graphics and stuff for a film that was made in was it 1982, I think. But it looks great. Stylistically, it looks amazing. But it does look like an old film now. But great, yeah, really, really enjoyed it. But it links to, I read today actually, the Tron 3 is apparently in development again. So it appears that, because it was originally planned in 2015. So now it's following the last Tron Legacy. Was it
I was
called?
going to say, was it called Tron Legacy? That was just sticking in my mind. Yeah.
Which I really liked. I thought it was brilliant because it was an updated version, really, of the original film. I thought it was fantastic. But yeah, they've seen I don't know whether it's from, maybe it's from viewing figures off Disney Plus of the other films or something. I don't know. But they've decided that they're making Tron 3. The same director from Tron Legacy, and they're hoping to get back for it.
Yeah.
And they're hoping that Daft Punk can do the soundtrack again, because Daft Punk did soundtrack for Tron Legacy.
Tron Legacy, that was one that I remember you saying that was one of the reasons
amazing.
why you agreed to it. Yeah,
absolutely amazing. So yeah, I mean, if that happens, the interesting thing about it for me as well, because in the original, Jeff Bridges was the main character, so a big actor for at the time. He came back sort of in this one, but the main character, which was meant to be Jeff Bridges' son, was relatively unknown. I can't even remember the guy's name. But Jared Leto is sort of earmarked for this one. So yeah, he's always good for a laugh.
I've not seen the original. I've got Disney Plus, so I can check it out. But I remember a friend of mine watching the Tron Legacy one and was raving about it as well.
Really good.
So is that on Disney Plus?
I think they both are, as far as I know.
Cool. Yeah,
you should watch them. Tron is one of those films you watch, and people may completely disagree, that you watch and you experience it, and it's almost like, oh yeah, I'm watching it, so now I can say I've watched Tron. Is how I look at it. It's not a film that you grip to. It's not a film that you're thinking, wow, that was a really good film. But it's one to experience. Whereas Tron Legacy, I thought was really, really good in the way it was put together. But
Hmm.
yeah, it'd be interesting. Well, thank you again. It's been great in the past week, seeing all the comments and seeing all the feedback online. Please do keep that up, because that's really an integral part of what we do with the show. And let us know. It's been really great hearing questions from people and integrating those into the show as well, because it gives us something to think about too.
Definitely, yeah. And as Matt said, you can find us on Instagram and on Twitter at This Week in Metropolis.
Brilliant. Well, thank you for listening.
Thanks, and we shall speak to you again next week.
Goodbye.
Thank you for listening. Transmission over.